Hey, welcome to Gridiron Gurus. I'm Travis Lazarczyk from the Quebec Journal and Morning Sentinel. This week, it's just me and my colleague, Drew Bonifant. We weren't able to get a coach, but we got so many games to talk about. So, Drew, let's get to it. First, though, let's talk about the weather. It's kind of changing a few things. Coney's going to play their home game at Lewiston High School. Kennebunk's going to play their home game at Biddeford at Waterhouse Field. And Herman moved their game with Winslow to Huston University. But I guess that had been determined before the weather looked like it was going to be a factor anyway. So.
Yeah, trying to get these games on turf. I mean, it's if you can do it, it's great. That's a great idea. I mean, these are big games. If you can get them onto a more predictable surface, a more kind of take that field element out of it. Especially because now some fields, we were talking last week about Coney's field and how it's not just bad, it's unplayable. Yeah. And so when you can take that out of the element and out of the equation and make it just about the football and about the teams playing. That's always a good thing if you can do it. It's good to see that some teams are.
Yeah, and every team at this point wants to get to the state game, and all 4 state games are going to be on turf. You know, the Class D game in Orono at University of Maine, the other 3 at Fitzpatrick Stadium in Portland. So it's good for a lot of these teams to get a chance to play on it if they don't any other time during the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say, oh, it's a big game. Let's get this on this sterile surface. I mean, there is something to be said for grass and everything, and how it could be a home field advantage. We're just the distinction is that we're talking about unplayable fields versus normal fields. It's not so much that grass is bad; it's that grass can really just. I mean, we saw with the Oak Hill and Lisbon game. We might be getting to that in a second, but how that can really strip the game down and really make it a tough product.
Yeah, nobody can do anything.
Time of the season. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately for a school like Coney, they have to play a game that's 35 miles from their home field, and it's technically a home game, but that's really a neutral site at this point.
Yeah, it's close enough. It's not like you're.
Brunswick's closer to Lewiston than Coney is. So.
Yeah, I mean it's still drive both. It's not like you're going to Brunswick's backyard or something like that. But it's a tough deal for Coney. I was talking to Coach Beal Lippert this week, and he was saying, some players have kind of been saying that. If they had known that the game against Gardner in the regular season was their last game at Alumni Field, they would have treated it a little different. I mean, it was a senior night, and they treat that as the last show. But they knew in the back of their heads, well, we're almost certainly coming back here. Yeah,
and you work all season to get that bye, get that home field, and then there's nothing you can do about it. The field's a mess. So.
Yeah, I'm sure some of those offensive players, for Coney, are probably going to, if they are feeling those sorts of feelings, they might fade by the time they see the turf surface and we can really let loose here.
Right. Last week in the first round of the playoffs, what do you feel like we learned, if anything?
I think we learned a lot about what we've been talking about all season, which is the competitiveness of Class D South. I have it right here. It was there were 26 games last week. Outside of Class D South, the home teams went 21-1. In Class D South, they went 1-3. It says a lot about the competitiveness of that league. That might be skewed a little bit because of the elements in that Lisbon game. Maybe that took away a chance for Lisbon to really, if they where they may have been superior to really exert that. But it just highlighted that when you take Wells out of the mix, that D South team is anybody can beat anybody in any day.
And we certainly saw that. And I think 2 of those 3 games, maybe all 3. The team that won in the regular season lost in the playoff rematch. Oak Hill had lost to Lisbon and then beats them 6-0 in overtime. Madison lost at Mountain Valley, goes back to Rumford and beats them this time around. And I don't remember, did Winthrop Monmouth Halldale beat Spruce Mountain in the regular season, or did Spruce Mountain?
They lost. I think it was 30-0. I think it was.
So that's
the same score reversed.
Yeah, another one where the score, the winner flipped. So
yeah, I mean that was. You knew that Winthrop game, the Winthrop Monmouth Halldale game against Spruce was going to be a different story this time around because a lot has changed with that Ramblers team. They have a running game now with Jevin Smith. They did not have one earlier in the season. They've just been able to find some role players. They've both on the lines. They've solidified their starters there, and so there was a lot that was still being worked out in Week 1, while Spruce kind of had more of an idea of what it was doing and who it had. That Winthrop team is looking like a really dangerous matchup. They're playing today.
Yes, they're playing. We're recording this on Thursday afternoon, so we'll let you know. Winthrop Monmouth Halldale is playing at Wells tonight.
Yeah, so I mean it's a tough matchup as it will be for anybody who plays Wells. So it's, but I'd be surprised if we see that game come back and it looks like one of Wells' blowouts from the season. I'm expecting the Ramblers to give them a battle. Gave them one in the regular season, and they've only gotten better since.
Sure. Let's stay in that division, and the other game is Oak Hill at Madison. Madison won the regular season game between these teams up in Madison, 47-34. It was back and forth until late in the third quarter when Madison scored a few touchdowns to pull away. The key for Madison, I think, is trying to contain Oak Hill's offense.
Yeah.
Especially quarterback
Gavin Roston.
Yes.
Yeah, and especially we knew he was a throwing threat at the start of the season. He's really started to come on as a dangerous running threat. He had over 100 rushing yards in that game that you covered,
and over 200 passing.
Yeah. So I mean I think it was 113, 267. So he's accounting for 370 plus there. That's just that really has given allowed that team to reach a new level. Yeah. Earlier in the season, they had some talent, but they were kind of limited in what they could do. They couldn't run the ball, kind of like the Ramblers we were talking about earlier. Just a team that was limited in what it could do to attack teams, and they've branched out. They've gotten playmakers and key players throughout the levels, and you can tell that's just a more confident team. They know that they're better than their record suggested, and I can't think that they're going into this game with any intimidation, even having lost to Madison.
Yeah, they shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. Madison has a good quarterback of their own in Eric Westcott, who's much like Roston in that he can throw the ball, he can run the ball, lines up in the spread a lot, and he's basically another running back in the Madison offense that they've run for 5-6 years now under Scott Franzose.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see if that game looks the way it did that you saw. I mean, you saw it was a game that took forever. I remember that. It went to the late hours of the night. So it's. I think that game against Lisbon that Oak Hill won last week, they won 6-0 in overtime. I don't think it's that their defense is at a point now where they can shut out Lisbon. I think that was the elements playing a lot and just limiting what both teams could do. So I don't know if this is so much a defensive juggernaut that's rolling into Madison. But it'll be interesting if it's as many points, if it's a shootout, if it's a little more contained than it was.
And what's the weather going to be like, too? We're expecting a lot of rain on Friday. How much is going to come Friday night between 7 and 9? These teams can be playing in a monsoon because that will limit what teams can do offensively quite a bit.
And I believe Madison played last Friday night. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so Oak Hill got a little more of the more of the weather. They got to see the weather already in a game, while Friday night was pretty decent.
It's cool but clean.
Yeah. So Madison might be seeing weather in the elements for the first time. Oak Hill might be seeing it for the second straight week. I don't know if that gives Oak Hill an advantage, but but it'll be interesting to see how much that has an effect on how these teams can just let up the scoreboard.
Yeah. Let's go to Class C South now. Cape Elizabeth at Leavitt. In the number 1 versus number 4 game. Cape Elizabeth lost to Leavitt in the first game, 42-20. One of many games that there was a rematch this week of a game that wasn't particularly close in the regular season. Another one in that division that you'll keep your eye on is number 3 Gardner going to number 2 Freiburg, where Gardner lost 36-6 in the regular season. Yeah,
this is going to be a real test for how much Gardner kind of got its rhythm back on offense. We talked about how much they were struggling going into that game against Morse in the first round last week, and they got their offense back in a hurry. Nate Malinowski ran for 381 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was it wasn't like it was the same sort of thing. He was just making guys miss and shaking off tackles. Sure. They were blowing out holes for him he was even talking after the game. I was getting safeties touching me for the first time on some of these runs. So it was overall, it was an attitude change that Gardner had in that game, and a big thing was getting Sean Michaud back. He was out; he'd been out since week 2. He's not back at quarterback, but he is back playing. He's a good athlete that you can give the ball to. He can make guys miss, good speed. So that just gave the team an extra weapon, an extra player, and it just seemed to give the team a spark. But they're going to need a lot more than just a spark against Freiburg. That's a good team. They beat Leavitt. And that's a team that's looked like C South's best team in the second half of the year. So
definitely.
That's a tough trip.
Yeah. In Class C North, we have number 3 Winslow playing at number 2 Herman at Husson University, like we said. This is one of only 2 games in the state, Drew, this weekend that's not a rematch of a regular season game. Winslow and Herman did not play in the Big 11 Conference this year. The other one would be Greeley at Kennebunk in Class B South. You saw Winslow last week against Waterville in their regional quarterfinal game.
Yeah.
How did they look?
They looked very, very good on offense, and they looked like they needed to clean things up on defense. Waterville in that first game, I believe it was 54-13, and that defense shut down what Waterville could do. Waterville got some scores early, but nothing late as Winslow kind of settled in. This time, it was back and forth, and I mean there were times Waterville needed to make stops to get back in the game, and Winslow never got off the field. They scored on all but one drive, but they also were rarely getting Waterville off the field to kind of crush them in that game. They allowed Waterville to hang around. So that's going to be something that needs to be cleaned up. And I bet Coach Savitsky at Winslow wasn't. He was probably happy to see the way the team played from an overall perspective, but I bet the defense bugged him because he knows it's not going to be good enough against Herman and how much they've scored this year. But that offense is legit. It's a tough running attack. Ben Dorval sometimes just looks like he can't be stopped out there, and they can throw the ball too, which I didn't realize going in.
Yes, they can. Colby Palmer was a good quarterback, and they just don't have to that often.
And they have a wide receiver, the sophomore wide receiver, Merrick Wederinsky, who is a player. That is he doesn't need to be open to catch the ball. He can jump up and take it away from people.
He's 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah, so if that is close and it comes down to red zone or something like that, he might be somebody who makes some plays that make a difference in that game.
No. I was talking to Coach Savitsky this morning, and he was raving about Herman's offense, which highest scoring offense in the conference, led by quarterback Garrett Trask, who accounted for just over 1,000 yards passing the ball, just under 700 yards rushing the ball, 26 touchdowns combined. And Savitsky said, this is a guy we haven't seen in all season, and he's the best scrambling quarterback Mike Savitsky has seen in years, he said.
Yeah.
So, and with receivers like Keith Pomeroy, running back like River Mullen, Herman has all sorts of weapons. And it's good to see a program that's really only been around for 7 or 8 years, get to this level where they're 8-1 heading into the regional semifinals.
Yeah, and the one loss was to MCI, which has looked like maybe the best all around team in that region all season long. Right. It didn't take long after that game for Savitsky to turn his attention forward and already start worrying about what was coming up because he knows what that offense about and that quarterback can do.
Right. You mentioned MCI. They will be hosting number 4 Nokomis. Nokomis, congratulations to the Warriors. Won their first ever playoff game last week when they beat Madomic Valley. So their reward is to head one exit down the highway to Pittsfield to take on MCI. Now, they did give them a heck of a game. It might have been MCI's best contest of the regular season. It was MCI won 24-21 in overtime in the regular season finale for both these schools. It was 21-0 MCI in the second quarter before Nokomis rallied and tied it in the fourth. And Drew, you kind of touched on it. This MCI team just looks like they've been on a mission to win a third straight title all season.
Yeah, I think that experience at this point of the season and having won it before, I think that's so valuable, and I think Bertrand has even said as much when we've had him on this show that these are guys who you don't need to worry about how are they going to handle this moment. Are they going to be able to muster whatever they need to muster to beat this team? And so I think that the chances are very small for MCI to come in and be anything less than ready to go.
Yeah, they will not come out flat. You can be guaranteed of that. And Nokomis, they didn't rest on their victory too long. You read the comments from Coach Jake Rogers immediately after the game. He's like, enjoy it, but we got a tough one coming up, and we haven't accomplished anything yet. It's a nice milestone for the program to finally win a playoff game after making the playoffs for the first time last season. But they don't seem satisfied, nor should they really.
Yeah, that would seem to be a good recipe for going to MCI and getting blown out if you were treating this one like, we got this off the board, boys. We're
everything's great.
Yeah, everything's great. But I just got to think that's a big weight off the shoulders after last year's good season that didn't result in a playoff win, to get that playoff win out of the way, and now you can probably I would think that they can look at this game just like the pressure in all intents and purposes is off. No, nobody's expecting us to win this game. We're the road team. We're the lower seed. It's not like we're trying to get some monkey off our backs. We're able to just kind of focus on having a good game, and a team could be dangerous when they do that. I don't know if they're as good as MCI, but they're, as you said from that regular season, good enough to make this a game.
Yeah, I covered that game in the regular season, and talking to Coach Rogers and some of the guys afterward, they knew that they played well to play with a good team like MCI, but they know they also have to play better.
Mm-hmm.
Like they said, they still beat us. We played pretty well, but they still got us at the end. So they know they have to, maybe run the ball a little better. They've had success throwing the ball against MCI, but they struggled at times getting their strong ground game going. And they just got to do a better job keeping MCI from having those long, drawn-out drives that they're known for.
Mm-hmm. And if you're wondering about something else to kind of even out the equation here, it's a recurring topic. But the weather, it just might be something that kind of, if MCI is here and Nokomis is here, brings it back more towards an even point where one or two plays can tilt the game.
Yeah. All right. Let's look at the Pine Tree Conference Class B right now. We have two games. Number 3 Brunswick will be playing number 2 Coney at Lewiston. Mm-hmm. It's almost become a neutral site game, and for Coney, this is a game that they won in the regular season pretty handily. Yeah,
and Dan Cooper, the Brunswick coach, afterwards was just fawning over how Coney's defense played. He said, I knew they were good. I didn't know they were that good, and they are good. That defensive line just shut down the Brunswick running attack. With the defensive ends, Nick Mills and Jake Mills, it's just really, really hard to get around to the outside on them. They contain so well. They shed blockers so well, and so Brunswick's going to need to find something else to get by. Now, they were saying going into practice that Owen Richardson was returning to practice. Don't know if he's going to be ready, if he's going to be able to go in this game. He had a broken collarbone the first week, so maybe it's a non-factor. Maybe he's not near going. But if he is, that would be a huge boost. Huge
dark
boost.
Horse candidate. For
Brunswick. You're bringing back the best runner from the conference last year. I mean, that would just change the equation entirely. But as of right now, I would think Coney has to feel pretty good about how their defense matches up to the Brunswick offense and how their offense will look again on a surface that's going to be more reliable and play faster.
The other game in the conference is number 4 Lawrence going up to number 1 Skowhegan. This is actually a rematch of a team where the road team won in the regular season pretty easily. Lawrence took a 44-26 win over Skowhegan just a few weeks ago. Lawrence coming off a good 20-13 win over a Mount Blue team that beat them way back in the first week of the season to get this far. You wonder if Skowhegan has figured out something defensively where they can stop that Lawrence run game from just running right up the middle on them over and over again.
Yeah, it seems like that's always the question we're dealing with at this time of year is does Skowhegan have enough defensively? It was what we were wondering last year, and it's what we're wondering again this year. I mean, they're the 1 seed. It doesn't feel like they're this unreachable 1 seed by any chance. Especially like you said, Lawrence has all the confidence in the world they need. They beat them in the regular season. And Lawrence feels like that team that throughout the season, I need to go game by game to verify this, but they just seem like that team that if it's supposed to be an easy game, they struggle a little bit, and if it's a game where they're supposed to have a tough time, they play up. And so that might be a situation where you get the best that Lawrence can. Yeah,
and this Skowhegan team isn't the offensive juggernaut it was last year, where they put up 50 points, almost every game. But they're still scoring in the high 20s at least every week. They still have Marcus Christopher, who might be the best quarterback in the state. Doesn't have the weapons he had last year, but he's got good ones, and guys like Colby Miller and Aiden Lauder. Running back Hunter Washburn will probably factor big into this game, and again, it's a weather game. If it's raining sideways, how much can Skowhegan throw?
That's true. It takes away Skowhegan's advantage over pretty much everybody in the conference is that quarterback and ability. I mean, when you talk about the difference between Skowhegan last year and this year, is that the biggest difference from what you've been able to see? Is just the talent at that wide receiver spot and what they lost from last year?
Yeah, you don't have a John Bell or a Cam Barnes who can just run a simple, 5 or 6 yard square out or something and then take it to the house. Or I don't know how many times I saw John Bell on a wide receiver screen last year, just catch it at the line of scrimmage or right behind it, make one move and go 70 yards for a touchdown. They don't have that breakaway threat, but they do have guys who can catch the ball.
Yeah, and that's the important thing, especially at this playoff stage, is to be able to extend those drives. Yeah, the ability to score on a play and have 2 play 70-yard drives is great, but it's really the ability to chew the clock and move the ball reliably and possess the ball, which is what they look like they're still able to do.
Yeah, and Skowhegan did have a bye last week, like Coney did, to rest up, get healthy. game plan a little bit. So it should be interesting. We hope the weather stays so it doesn't just factor into too many of these games.
Yeah, you don't want it. Weather games are always pretty fun, but it's not to the point that it turns these games into just mud bowls and monsoons where it's everybody's winning 6-0 or 7-6 and extra points are a total adventure and everything. You like it to be a little cleaner than that.
Sure. Briefly, let's look at Class A. There's some interesting games in Class A South. Number 3, Bonnie Eagle at number 2, Scarborough. That was a 48-35 Scarborough win just a few weeks ago. And number 4, Sanford at number 1, Thornton. Thornton won that first game 48-0. It just looks like it's going to be Thornton Academy and Scarborough again, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks like they're not going to be threatened until the regional final. I mean, you can't imagine Sanford giving them much of a game after the way that regular season game went. And Bonnie Eagle has had kind of an up and down season, but they're a win over a vulnerable Scarborough team from being back in that regional final. And I don't know if they'll be able to challenge Thornton too much. I mean, they've been pretty much on a roll all year.
Yeah, and another match that just seems inevitable next week is Kennebunk and Marshwood in Class B South. Marshwood will be hosting Falmouth, and Kennebunk, like we said earlier, will be hosting Greeley at Waterhouse Field in Biddeford. They had an amazing close game in the regular season finale. It looks like Kennebunk and Marshwood are destined to play again.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that, just based on the way I thought Marshwood was showing a little bit of vulnerability, even if they're winning games throughout the regular season. And I thought Kennebunk was looking like a wagon, and Kennebunk may have been even head and shoulders above Marshwood in that region. And then they met, and you found out that's not the case at all. They're dead even, and so I'd be more excited about a rematch for the region in the regional final than I was for the end of the regular season, which was a match above unbeaten.
Yeah. All right, we'll end it right there. Enjoy the games this weekend. We'll be back next week when we talk about the regional finals. Thanks for watching or listening to Gridiron Gurus.